Imagine this. You spend your entire life training for a single moment, only to step away as soon as it's right in front of you. That's exactly what happened to Simone Biles earlier this week when she chose to walk out of the Olympics.
Not only did she walk out on a huge moment in her life, but she had to do it in front of the entire world. Critics called her a quitter, but experts are calling her an inspiration to others.
Let's bring in an emotional intelligence expert here in Texas, Sahar Paz. Good morning, Sahar.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
Glad you're here. First of all, for people who may not know, what is emotional intelligence, or EQ?
You got it. Emotional intelligence in the simplest way is to perceive, control, and evaluate your emotions. If I were to break that down into 4 steps, it's really understanding your self-awareness, regulating those emotions, understanding your social awareness, and then managing the relationships in your life, which Simone Biles was able to do all 4 of those things. She was aware of how she was feeling. She was able to manage those emotions and continue to go. You even heard her coach saying, just be mindful, just be mindful. And she was able to say, what's the pressure in society and how am I going to be able to manage the relationships on my team and make sure that I'm thinking about the greater good? And that's the best way and simplest way that I can explain emotional intelligence.
And, you know, speaking of Simone, she showed that it's okay to step back and take a breath in big moments. How does that relate to emotional intelligence for everyone else?
You got it. So those first 2 steps, self-awareness and self-regulation, it's that balance. It's understanding and saying, I understand what's coming up in my mind. I mean, especially for athletes, Olympics or beyond, your mind is such an important part of the game. It's about really staying dialed in. So for that year, the pandemic, where they were ready to go and be part of the Olympics, they had to stop and continue to use that mental capacity to keep going. That's another part of your stamina. And that self-regulation, that the ability to manage your emotions says, okay, I know that my emotions are taking me left or right, maybe center, and understanding when it's becoming a drain and ultimately taking away from your focus and your ability to perform physically. And so that's what she really showed. She was aware and she was able to self-regulate for the greater good of her team and her performance.
Sahar, what else can people at home take away from Simone's big decision?
Absolutely. You know, we have a pressure to just keep going, keep pushing through, but we have to remember that we need to work smarter, not harder. And although there's a lot of emphasis on productivity and getting the job done, it's important to remember that how we motivate, how we empathize, and how we lead ourselves through it is super important. So feel your feelings, acknowledge that they're there rather than going on with the narrative or distracting yourself. Ask for feedback, especially leaders. Don't be afraid to ask for feedback. This allows us to cultivate that honest conversation that lets us avoid any burnout or lets us avoid pushing ourselves to go to the next routine and possibly injuring ourselves. And get to know your values. Your values are really what allow you to motivate and continue to work through and not burn yourself out. I think sustainability is really a big thing that we need to consider.
All right, Sahar Paz, thank you for joining us this morning. A very timely topic.
Thank you for having me. Take care.
You too.